BeastNet is brought to you by James Safety Services in partnership with OCR Buddy and OCR Strong. Here we discuss all things OCR and fitness related. Welcome to BeastNet.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. And I know this sounds really bad, but I'm not happy with my time. I finished, but technically I was 20 minutes over.
There's a time cutoff?
You're supposed to be done in 8 hours and 30 minutes. I was done in 8:50.
Okay.
Technically. So, I mean, it still shows that I finished, but that's kind of like when they give you the breakdowns, you have an hour and 10 minutes to finish the swim, 5.5 hours from the time you start to swim to finish the bike, and then 8.5 hours to finish the whole thing. I was technically 20 minutes over.
Okay.
So, and I mean, I'm going to take the win because I finished it, but at the same time, it's like, it eats in my brain right now that I technically missed that cut. So,
So are you credited as a finisher then?
yes.
Okay.
As far as it from what I've seen, it shows that it credits me as a finisher, but at the same time, it's like, but I know the truth.
Right.
So, but I mean, no, it just means I got to train harder and do it again.
But hey, isn't that what we say after every race anyways?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I know where my mistake was. I was on pace all the way through the swim and the bike. The run is what killed me. Once I got off the bike, I just couldn't, like, my legs didn't want to work to run, and I couldn't get a good enough pace. And the first lap really killed me. I mean, once I got off the bike, I think that first lap I was between like 18 and 20-minute miles because it was 3 laps of a 4-mile loop. And I think it was 18 to 20. And then the second 2 laps, I was down to around 15. If I'd kept the 15 to begin with or better, I would have had it. But it's that first lap, just, and I did something to I don't know if it's my hamstring or my glute, but it happened in the swim. Like, I don't know if someone kicked me or hit me or whatever right there, but it's still a week and a half later. I still have like tenderness in my glute, right? Like where your glute and your hamstring would pretty much come together. And it's been over a week, and I still have tenderness, and that started in the swim. So I fought that the entire bike and run. And that's why I had problems running too. Every time I tried to like push and get that push, I kept getting that twinge running from my glute all the way down my hamstring. So I couldn't really get a good rhythm going on the run. So all excuses, I mean, but things to learn from for next.
Yeah. All things that you can take into, the next race and into your training and kind of figure out, why these occurred and what you can do better.
Yeah. So all things I need to look at. I mean, it's one of those things I need to get better at the bricks and getting into that run. Because like I said, once I got that first lap, I couldn't go. And just couldn't get my body to push it. The second 2 laps were better, but still not where I should have been. So, and the swim killed me because I've never done it that way. I've always ran in or started in the water. This one, you jumped off a dock to start. Yeah.
Is that safe?
I don't know. But it started with what would happen is they had like 4 docks, a dock, and then it went out to 4 fingers, like, out of the dock. And basically there was 4 lines going down each dock. And then they had an alarm that went off every probably 5 to 10 seconds. And when you heard the beep, you jumped. And it was no diving, just feet first, jump, make sure, look and make sure there's no one, right there in front of you. But you were still you were hitting the water and they were only 3 or 4 feet in front of you.
Right.
And then when I hit the water, of course, my goggles went up. So I had to like swim basically at the first kayak just to be able to fix my goggles. So it was something new that I'd never done. I'd always just, started completely different. So it was a different start. There was nowhere you could get in the water to get acclimated beforehand. Like nothing. Like the first time you touched water was when you jumped off the dock.
Wow.
So there was a lot of differences in this one that I didn't realize and wasn't ready for. So, but I know what to be ready for next time.
Okay, good.
Yeah. It was interesting. Definitely want to do it again. So definitely know, like I said, know what I need to work on. I should have been quicker on the bike. Um, I was fast enough, if that makes sense, but I still felt like I should have been better. Because if I had been faster on the bike, the run wouldn't matter.
Right.
So, and I mean, it's 20 minutes. That's what kills me. Out of eight, I was 8.5 hours what I needed, and I was 8:52. I think was my official finish. So, just need to cut 22 minutes off that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, congratulations. You're an Ironman. Well,
thank you.
half Ironman.
Half iron. I'm not ready for a fall. Yeah, yeah, it's too much. Someday, someday. Yeah. So yeah, I was really happy. I mean, I was happy to do it. I was glad I finally got that like monkey off my back, I guess, because I've tried twice before and had issues, and this time I finally did it. You know, but of course, because I'm who I am, I keep thinking, okay, well, technically this one was a little easier. There was 184 feet of elevation in the entire bike ride. That was it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I never shifted, not once. Once I got going, I found the gear I wanted, and that's just what I did. There was no reason. I mean, the only reason there was 184 feet was because we went up and over a bridge. That
That's
was it. It
funny.
was just went right along the seawall the whole way. So,
Oh, nice.
so, so I mean, just things to think about. And I think that kind of got me too, because I'm used to like the little bit of up and down where you get the downhills and you get that, but there was just straight, just go, you
Yeah.
know.
Yep.
So, but yeah, no, it was good. It was a good learning experience. So there's some things I need to figure out. But
Okay.
yeah,
Well, then we can start figuring it out.
yeah. So,
So what would you say was the biggest issue you ran into?
um, it was whatever happened to my leg, my left leg for whatever reason that because the problem I had I had the like I thought it was a Charlie horse to begin with, but I don't know the Charlie horse. It lasts for a week and a half, but I couldn't ride the way I wanted to. I kept having to switch my how I was riding because of that hamstring. Like for part of it, I actually had to unclip my feet because the pull up was hurting my hamstring.
And you haven't experienced that before in training.
No, no, never happened before. And like I said, it was about halfway through the swim. So I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if it was because I'm like, how would I strain my leg in a swim?
Right.
So I mean, it was a very interesting. I've never had it happen before. Never had an issue with that part of my leg before, but it was pretty much, yeah. Like I've been icing it. I've got a sauna now at home. I've tried the sauna, the ice bath, iced it, used the massage gun, everything on it, and it's better now, but it's still there. I can still feel that, when I've tried, running a little bit since then, I still get a little bit of twinge. I did a rock over the weekend, a hike about 8 miles, and when I'm going uphill, I could feel it still in that, that spot in the back of my leg.
Um, so climbing uphill bothers it?
Yeah.
What other stuff seems to bother it?
Um, if I'm sitting and I go to stand or like a squat, and it's not going down in the squat, it's coming up.
It's coming up in the squat.
Mhm.
Okay. Um, what kind of glute activation work do you do typically?
Probably not enough. I'll be honest, I couldn't tell exactly what yeah, activation. I do squats and yeah. So, yeah.
Okay. How much glute hamstring development stuff in general?
Not in, like I said, squats is usually about. And my hamstrings have always been tight ever since I was a kid. I've never in my life have I been able to bend over and touch my toes.
Okay. Do you do unilateral strength training or just bilateral?
Bilateral, mainly.
Okay. So you need more unilateral work because when in anything related to triathlons, are you ever using both legs simultaneously together?
You don't. It's all no, except for in the swim because they just drag behind me. But um,
Wait, you're not kicking your legs?
no, it sounds really, but I've never in my life, no matter how many times I've had like coaches, people try and teach me, it's one or the other. I either use my arms or my legs. If I try them both together, it's just nothing goes right.
Why?
I don't know. It's something like I don't know. I've just never been able to. It's one or the other. Like if I'm scuba diving and I have the fins, it's my legs and that's it. If I'm actually swimming, it's always just been arms. And my legs just kind of dangle, just there.
Okay, so we've got to figure out a way to get you using your legs more. Um, I know I've given you work with a lot of unilateral stuff
You
because
have.
at
And I
this
have that.
point, all of my leg training is pretty much just unilateral.
No, I have it in my gym. It's actually on the wall. But I've been bad and haven't been following it.
So, what's stopping you from doing it?
My own brain. I get, I don't know. I have no excuse, honestly. I really don't have a good excuse. It's I get stuck on the idea and I don't know what it is. And I know the truth and what I should be doing, but I get stuck on that I need to run, swim, and bike. And I know that if I do the other stuff, it'll build up those muscles and make it better. But I get to that point where I don't think I have time for the rest, and then I don't do it. And then I'm like, oh, I got to get the runs from bike done because I've got that coming up. When I know in my brain, because we've talked about it repeatedly, that if I do the workouts, build the muscles, it'll make arrow that other stuff better automatically.
The worst part about any kind of adventure racing, since we all fall into that adventure racing umbrella at this point, is
Hmm.
that we're doing more than one sport. It sucks.
Hmm.
It's a huge time suck. And there's not enough hours in the day to focus on every single thing we ever need to get done.
No.
Strength training is important. That is your maintenance work. That's what's going to, keep the engine running, keep all of the joints operating properly. Yeah, you obviously need to do the cardio because that's quite literally what you're going to be doing on race day. But like, if your hamstrings stop working, like it sounds like your hamstrings stopped working, you're not going to go very fast.
No. And that was the problem. Once that hamstring was having issues, I had to change up pretty much everything. And my breathing and my cardio never came into an effect because there's more worrying about the muscles. Because my muscles were tiring quicker because I was using the wrong ones.
Right.
Because I wasn't using the ones that I've been training because I had to move, and I had to shift. And like I said, I had to basically, it was probably about halfway through where I had to literally completely unclip because the pull up was starting to hurt too much. And I had to unclip so that I could just use the push down, no pulling up. So now all of a sudden I'm using more muscles, more of the muscles than I normally do because normally I use both.
Right.
So yeah. So everything kind of fell apart. right from the beginning. I pushed through it, but that's kind of the mistake that I made. If I had, like you said, worked my muscles like I'm supposed to, like we've talked about, then I probably wouldn't have had that problem to begin with.
Yes. So where can you find time in your schedule to at least add in the unilateral lower body training?
When I get home from work. That's the one thing that I got to figure out is I got to do it when I get home from work. I think what I've been pushing for is because I keep getting in my brain that I need to get so many miles in, and I don't.
What
I
do you
mean, I
mean you
do.
don't?
I think I keep using all my time to run and get on the treadmill and do stuff like that. And I'm doing more of that. I could do less of that. Let's put it that way, and add in the strength work to help balance it out. And I think that's my biggest thing because I keep pushing because I used to do the 100 miles a month, but I also had more
Yes.
time and it destroyed my legs. So I back that down, but at the same time, my brain keeps getting stuck on that mileage. So I need to get more mileage. And I'm like, no, but if I did, like I said, it's getting my brain into out of that idea that I have to have the mileage. Because
Completely.
if I drop some of that down, like I said, I could have time because I make time for the mileage every day. I just need to, instead of some of those days, instead of doing the mileage, go do the workout.
We've talked about junk miles before, plenty of times.
Yes.
Why is the mileage so important to you right now?
I think it's one of those things for me is because I never could. And then I finally did it. And that became, in a sense, like during COVID when I lost all the weight and dropped down to 180 pounds, that was 90% of my entire workout was getting all the miles, doing all the miles, eating correctly, doing everything. And there wasn't as much lifting. So trying to convince my brain that the miles are good, but the weight training is going to be what keeps me being able to do it. If I had kept the weight training in like I should have in the beginning, I probably could have kept going with that. Not that it was good to do the 100 miles a month, but you know what I mean. It probably wouldn't, my legs wouldn't have fatigued as bad as they did because I would
Mm-hmm.
be doing other things rather than running. It's just getting it's that problem once you get a thought in your brain trying to, even though you know you're wrong, trying to eliminate it and say, okay, no, we need to do this differently. And I think I worry too that if I stop getting the miles, I'm going to stop doing everything. But I just need to shift that thought into the miles into the workouts because I'm still doing something. I'm just doing something different.
If you don't mind me asking, how long did it take you to run?
What I mean,
Like during the Ironman, how long were you running?
3 hours and 40 minutes.
Okay, when was the last time before this you ran for 3 hours and 40 minutes?
A while ago.
Okay, that is probably a little bit slower than your half marathon, correct?
Yes. Usually my half marathons at my slowest is 2.5, 2:45.
Okay, so I mean, a half Ironman, you're running a half marathon
Yeah.
after all this mess. And not only did it take you slower than what a normal 13-point run race would take you, but also add in that you swam and biked. So it wasn't just you did 3 hours plus for running, you did over 8 hours of everything.
Yeah.
It's very rare that we train for 8+ hours of anything. So when you go running and you're like, I want to hit a half marathon today, you then get into the Ironman or half Ironman, and it takes you longer than your training half marathon would take you. How do you know that you're going to be trained for that if you're not spending more time on your feet? Again, going over 3+ hours in training Not always the smartest. I only program out those extra long runs for clients who are racing ultras just as like a, hey, let's see what your body does at extended periods of time. Let's test out your nutrition, test out your gear. I don't care really about how well you're running at a 6-hour mark, but I want to know how your body's feeling at a 6-hour mark.
Yeah.
So when you're focusing so much on your miles, you're only thinking about your miles. You're not thinking about that time on feet. So you're like, let's get through this 13.1 as quickly as I can. Let's maybe gravitate towards easier roads or easier trails or something you're more familiar with where you can kind of just turn your brain off and go. And then what could possibly be happening is you're missing out on these little cues of, oh, my body's doing this, or I'm noticing this, or I need this. Whereas if you're like, okay, my last half marathon at the end of the half Ironman took me between 3 and 4 hours. I am going to get, 3 hours
Yeah.
and build up that time on feet. Same with your biking, same with your swimming, particularly open water swimming, because this was open water swimming, correct?
Yeah.
So,
And that has been the hardest part here in Texas. There's not as many open water swimming areas as there was in Washington
okay.
because I completely don't think about the fact that stuff that's in the water here is a little more
Yeah.
iffy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alligators, snakes, stuff like that. Washington, we don't have any of that.
I don't
So
want any of that. Ew.
yeah. So yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you know, we obviously we talk obstacle course racing and we say no beast is ever the same as the next,
No.
you can plan for a half marathon, but a half marathon at Killington versus a half marathon in Florida are going to be two substantially different races.
Oh yeah.
So we don't want to plan for a half marathon. We want to plan for a ridiculous amount of time on foot. And
Yeah.
then throw in, you know, you you're probably running training, getting most of your running miles without having swam or biked first.
No.
So you're not factoring in that massive blow your body is going to take from swimming and biking. The only way to really prep it for that without physically doing it over and over and over, which is not good on our body, is to give it the strength training work, is to teach it like, hey, you are stronger than this.
Yeah. And I did do some breaks, but I mean the biggest thing is I never did that distance. I would
Yeah.
do 10 or 15 miles on the bike, hop off and go run a 5K.
Mm-hmm.
Which you'd still get that like your legs are mush and everything else, but still it's not 56 miles on a bike. It's not 4 hours,
Right.
on a bike. So I mean and that's the thing. And I mean when I did the bike, literally I like stopped the bike and for one time in that entire time. That was only because I ran out of water in my on the bike and I stopped at one of the things to get water and refilled my bottle. And that's the only time I ever even stopped the bike and got off in that whole 4 hours. Just went. So, but the other thing too is I made the mistake of I looked at the weather. It was supposed to be 75 and overcast with a chance of rain. And I'm like, cool. So I brought hydration and everything for 75 and overcast. It was 85 and sunny the entire time.
Oh,
So by the time I came off the bike, I knew that I hadn't had enough hydration. So that was like the first hydration station I came to. I pretty much stopped and just chugged everything to get, hydration and get going. And I think that's part of the other reason I had problems on that first lap was trying to cool my body down because I'd stop at the hydration stations, grab an ice and just dump it down my shirt, cool my body down, and then felt better by the second two laps. So there was a couple other things in there. I think my hydration was wrong because, like I said, I was planning 75 and overcast. I wasn't planning 85 and, hot.
right.
Um, But yeah, I need to work on the weight training. I need to get my legs back to where they should be. And the weight training will help with that.
Yeah. I mean, the strength training is going to be the best thing you can do to prevent injury, to build up strength. I mean, if you want to talk science and strength training, in order to develop power, you need strength and velocity. So, like, if you're looking to be quick, explosive, whatever else, you need to be strong before you ever think about going faster,
Mhm.
because the two of them together is going to give you that explosiveness.
Yeah, you need to have
Uh,
to push off.
yeah. But then also, like, you're going for 8-hour events, you need your endurance. So you got to build up your body's endurance. You got to build up your body's strength. You got to build up your body's power systems. These all happen in the weight room. You can only go so fast. If you don't have the strength to support it, your muscles are going to give out. And that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like I said, I got through it, and I think that's the one thing for me, and that was one thing that I really tried, like after, during COVID when I lost all the weight and everything, one of the biggest things I wanted, because like Spartan races, I finished a lot of Spartan races
Mm-hmm.
before COVID, even when I was big, but I finished. And I'd kind of gotten to that thought in my brain. I was tired of finishing. I wanted to crush them.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get out there and do it. I'd spent 12 hours on a Spartan course, doing an ultra. I've done all those and I know I can go for that long, but I want to get my body to that point of I don't have to,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to do it better, faster, but keep my body where I'm not breaking down after, you know,
Yeah.
6, 7 hours, that I'm still able to keep it going for, and keep going for all that. That's what I
Good.
need I need to get my body back to.
Yeah.
So,
You have to keep challenging yourself, keep giving it new stimuli that it needs to learn.
yeah.
And,
Well,
strength training is going to do that.
yeah. And that's what I mean, I got all the stuff in the gym to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I just need to do it. So and get out there and do it. I mean, the biggest problem I had, and of course it's all excuses. I didn't want to go during it was too cold during the winter. Now it's too hot, and it's like, okay, it's like
Too
just
cold. You live in Texas.
I know, man up and do it.
I
But
was out there on the trails in Boston all winter. Granted,
oh,
we
I
never
know.
saw snow, but like, yeah, I went out in single digits, teens.
I mean, I used to do it all the time in Washington. I would go out there. The one that worries me is I don't like when it gets cold is like if I use the treadmill at all. I don't like using the treadmill in the cold because in Washington I had twice where because of the cold the treadmill stopped. Like it got sticky,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't know. Yeah, that because being cold it froze basically, and then when I went to use it, it all of a sudden stopped while I was running.
Oh,
And I'm like, no, my knees don't like that. So,
yeah.
but but then there's the other thing. I can still go out there and lift weights. I can do everything else. I mean, I have floor mats and everything out there, so it's a nice gym. I should probably use it.
Yeah, you should probably use it. Should probably stop making excuses and go do it.
Yes, yes, I will.
So, on the lines of, you don't know what your body's going to do after X amount of time. I had an ultra yesterday.
Because I know you did one too. So how was yours?
Yes. It was called Don't Run Boston. It's an ultra put on by a local trail running company or club here. And I've been running with the trail club for a while. And I run out at the Blue Hills literally every single weekend, and that's where this race was held. And this is an unmarked ultra. So there's no course markings. They say, make sure you have a map with you because you will get lost. This is the race that everybody gets lost at. They don't close down the park. So you have, the amateur hikers and the off-leash dogs
Mhm.
the entire time. So super fun. And then they have places where they've like dropped like gallons of water, and then they have like one main aid station, and you hit it like 3 times. Great. So I was scouting out this trail for probably a month or so leading up to the race because, again, it's the race that everybody gets lost at. So I loaded it up into my watch and I just did different sections of the race. But I did all but maybe 3 miles of the course. It's like, oh, that should be fine. So the first 2 sections of the race, yeah, I got lost at one point because ran into another woman who was completely lost. And we took a wrong turn and ended up probably adding an extra mile on there. And then I was like, no, we're heading towards the end. She's like, no, my map says to keep going this way. I'm like, well, yeah, because we have to hit every single intersection on the trail and go in every which way, that when it realized that you got off course, well, there's still part of the course over here. So we're just going to skip over that other stuff you missed.
Yeah.
So finally I was like, well, I'm going to turn back because I know that you're heading to the finish line and we are only 4 miles into this ultra. But like the running was great. Then we hit what was called Skyline Trail, which is, it's the very scenic, very technical terrain up over every single hill in the Blue Hills. And it's
Mhm.
like very jagged rocks, like shale rocks. You have like you're climbing on your hands and your butt and everything else to go up, down, everywhere. I ended up spraining my ankle 3 times over the course of this race. It was advertised as 5,000 feet of elevation, but it was, again, rock climbing, 5,000 feet of elevation. I got 6. Um, but we got off the skyline. I ended up stubbing my foot pretty badly. Ultra decided to change the timps, which I'm not happy about, like very much not happy about. The shoe is much smaller now, so more narrow, shorter. I bought the same size I bought in the timps in every single year, and I've worn them for 4 years. I've worn them for every single ultra I've ever ran in.
Mhm.
And my feet were very unhappy for 28 miles until I decided to finally change out my shoes. Um, Stubbed my toe trying to make my way around some amateur hikers and off-leash dogs, and think I might have broken a couple toes. Got off the Skyline Trail and got back to the part where I could run again, and it was like, wow, okay. I was at my watch said mile 18, mile 16 for the race to show how much I was getting off with this whole trying to navigate yourself because Garmin didn't want to actually tell you which way to turn. Um, and yeah, by the time I got into the next like pretty runnable section, my body was like, yeah, no, we're not going anymore. You're just gonna stay moving on your feet. You cannot run. And of course, like 2 of the 3 miles that I didn't get to do during training was this like clover leaf section where they just kept making us take all of these random turns and then have to come around to the intersections. And again, Garmin's not telling us, turn left. It just says keep going. So we're making wrong turns everywhere, and it was a nightmare. Um, but it was probably the most humbling experience of my life because not only was I like trying to navigate and not get lost. So like talking to people was great, but then even then we would end up getting lost because we're not watching our watch. And, obviously you couldn't like wear headphones or anything there because your brain is too distracted. And so much technical terrain, uphill, downhill, all over. This was my first point to point 50K. I've done plenty of loop formats, but I've never done go run 50K start to finish line, even though they were at the exact same place. And you do hit a lot of like similar trails throughout it.
Mhm.
And it was shocking at one point. I had gotten cramps in my adductors twice, and I think it was because I rolled my ankles and having to kind of tiptoe around all of the technical terrain, which is a nightmare. I was changing my gait, and I realized that I was descending off of some of these rocks where I was like leaning back more, instead of like hip hinging forward. So I changed up and like started hip hinging more, and the cramps just like went away. And then there was something else. I don't even remember now. Um, but it was such a humbling experience. I finished, I don't know the official time because of course my watch died with like a quarter of a mile left. I got somewhere between 33, 34 miles in like 9.5-ish hours, maybe a little bit more. I don't know. I really have no idea. Maybe it was 8.5. I have no clue. But like, it's one of those races that doesn't have a medal. It doesn't have a shirt. There's no official timing. There's no race photos. It's like, here's your big slice of humble pie, be proud of yourself and get on your way. I finished DFL, dead effing last, technically dead effing last on the trail for the 50K, but because they had 2 different start times, I might not have finished last on the timing portion. I don't care. I'm so proud of myself because it was the hardest, most humbling race I've ever ran, and I've run Killington numerous times. It was insane as soon as my body stopped and like I finally started like feeling sensations again, instead of just like oh wow, you're doing a lot of work. I have never had such an insanely sore back strictly from running. My back, even today, feels like I just did 1,000 pull-ups and all the rows, and I had a ridiculously strong back workout, and it was strictly from trail running.
Wow. Sounds like a fun one though. I mean, fun in the fact that, it's going to kick your ass, but those are the good ones.
Yeah. And the only reason why I finished DFL on the trails was because so many people dropped out. I haven't seen the actual DNF rate, but they said a lot of people came into the mile 26 aid station. They only have a couple more miles to go. And they're like, no, I'm tapping out. And it like I remember it was me and 2 other people running together, and like as they were coming into the end, they took off and my feet were like, we're not going to push this. You're good. You can stay jogging. You don't need to like sprint the last mile to the end. So I'm like, you guys go. I'm proud to take the DFL. Like, this is amazing to me. But we were lost on some of the trails and we like knew where we were, but we didn't know where else we needed to turn. And one of the people was like, do you guys just want to like head back to the aid station and call it a day? I'm like, hell no. I'm finishing this race. Like, I am going to go and get lost 10 more times and finish this race. They're like, we've already hit, we're already over 26 miles in. Like, we have an ultra. Like, we're fine. Like, nope, I am finishing this race as it is written, even if I got off course numerous times. And like the 3 of us ended up finishing it. But it was so incredibly humbling. And like we get so used to, Spartan races, like you say, like we finish so many of them. We can finish them in our sleep at this point. Like,
yeah.
Like, I'm not going to knock, the hardest of Spartan ultras. Like Killington, I know it's going to completely destroy every single person that goes out there. It is ridiculously hard. But this is a different kind of hard. And this was like an amazing kind of hard. It's not a turn your brain off and just go and follow the white tape. It's, go and, make sure you're staying attentive so you don't miss your turns, you know, make sure you're staying up on your fuel, watch where you're walking. How are you going to navigate around people who are just like casually on the trails? And like, there's a lot to be said about how much your running gait and your running posture will help you to get to the end. Because like, even though my feet were killing me for that entire race, and if, the people who were running with me will say, I was complaining the entire time about my feet. I'm sure that they were like upset, like, oh my God, I can't wait to get away from her. Like, all she's doing is complaining about her feet. She's stopping every hour to like try to loosen up her shoelaces. Like, there was no reprieve. These shoes are
Yeah.
terrible. Oh my God, if you're listening, do not get the Timp 5s. They're miserable. I digress. But yeah, at as I'm coming down, like, I'm still running, and, like, my gait is fine. I'm not cramping anymore. I hadn't cramped in, like, 10 miles. My body as a whole feels good. I went into work today and was training clients, and one of my colleagues looked at me as I'm doing, like, a 90-90, where you come up onto your knees, then you, like, windshield wiper side to side, without your hands, and he's like, "Megan, you ran an ultra yesterday. How are you doing that? My hips can't even do that on a good day, let alone after a marathon." It's like, there's no reason you should be moving this well. Like, yeah, it hurts to stand and walk and go downstairs, but like once I'm moving, I feel great.
Yeah. And
And
that's for
it,
me. As long as I'm moving, I feel good.
yeah, but I attest it all to my strength training. I know, I need to do more work on my ankles. I have gotten away from doing as much of my ankle stability as I had been doing. So that's something I'm really gonna reassess and get back into doing now. So I'm not getting hit with ankle rolls. Um, but my back is sore because my posture on the trails was so great that I was actually using gravity to help me run, but like still keeping my chest proud, my core engaged. I wasn't slumping at all. I was able to like stay nice and upright, and my body did what it's trained to do because again, I've built my endurance, I've built my strength, I've built my power, and I've worked them all together to mesh so I can survive and still run farther. I ran to that imaginary finish line and I was like, "Oh, I can stop now."
Yeah.
I could have kept going.
Yeah. And I think that's the big thing. Like you said, I can stop now. Where before it's like, thank God it's over.
Yeah.
And you get to that point where, and I think that's one of the reasons why, like, I started even doing triathlons in the beginning. It got to a point with Spartan, I'm like, I know I can finish it. I know I have the endurance to just keep going till I'm done, but I wanted a new challenge.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the thing for me. I've never been a strong swimmer, ever. It's like my wife always said, you're a really strong swimmer for about 50 feet. And I'm like, yeah, that's the problem. For about 50 feet, and then it all goes to hell. So that was one of the things I wanted a new challenge, and that's kind of thing with like the trail running, like you're talking about, like why I do the Sisu run in June. I'm going back up to Washington to do Sisu. I mean, it's 24 hours of trail running. Last
Mhm.
year I had I think 30 miles and like 7,000 feet elevation. I mean, in 24 hours, and this year I want more.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is it's different because it's not as like choose your own adventures yours is. I mean, they do have like there's ribbons, but if you're not paying attention, which I did it last year on one of them where I completely missed a turn because I missed the ribbon. So it's not completely like no map, there's ribbons, but if you're not paying attention, you'll miss one
Yeah.
because you're just out in the woods going on trails that they've said, okay, here's this whole trail system, we're going to use these ones for the event. There's a whole bunch of other trails that you could follow to go down that
Yeah.
aren't part of it. So, and it's just like you have to pay attention and you're out there. And I love those ones because you're just out in the middle of nowhere. You do run into the occasional, like just regular hiker, but other than that, you're just out in nature
Yeah.
and it's awesome.
It's
You know,
so amazing. But like we get so comfortable with, the Spartan races or the OCRs of, okay, we're going to follow an open trail. Every once in a while they'll go off trail and you have to bushwhack a little bit, but you're just following behind the next person.
Mhm.
And you go through an obstacle that you've seen time and time again. It might be placed in a spot that it's gonna, completely destroy you, or maybe it's not. You're gonna go around and you're gonna jump over that fire. You're gonna collect that medal. but like there's a certain level of authenticity to like, the fat ass ultras where you all just go out, all the runners provide the aid in the aid stations and drop your bag and they draw a line in the sand and say, okay, this is your start line, go. They're timing you with their basic watch. They say check in when you hit the aid station so we don't know that you're not dead. Make sure you have your phone on you. Make sure you have your map. Here's a phone number in case of an emergency. Have fun.
Yeah. And it is because I mean it makes you think. That's one of the things like I remember one of the big things I remember with Spartan was they used to have like the memory test and all those things to make your brain work. And
Yeah.
those are all gone now. And that's one of the things I love about like the adventure races, like the Sisu and the one that you were just talking about. You have to think because if
Mm-hmm.
you're not paying attention, you just end up out in the middle of nowhere, you know.
Yeah.
And I mean, they do have the things, just like you were talking about. You come into and you check in, but at like Sisu, you do loops. So you check in, you go do your loop and check in when you get back. If you're not back in a certain amount of time, hey, we start sending people out to go find you,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. But I mean, there's no aid stations that you take everything with you.
Yeah.
You're your own aid station. You have your own water. You have, for me, that's why I have like 3 different life straws now. Because the very first year I didn't think about it. I'm like, oh, I'll be fine with one bladder. It'll be great. You know, 116-degree day. Yeah, no, I had problems.
Yeah,
So now
definitely.
I have, whenever I go rocking, hanging from the back of my rock strap is a life straw.
Good.
So if I'm ever out anywhere and I need to, I can get water. And that's just one of those things. If you learn and you learn from those, where like Spartan, we're just learning how to go over obstacles. And I'm nothing at Spartan. We pick on Spartan a lot on here. I know that, but it's just because it's the standard everyone holds things to. But they shouldn't. It's the adventure races. That's where I'm seeing the future because you have to use your brain. You have to go out and do it. You're not just following behind everybody and climbing over obstacles. We're just rats in a maze on a Spartan race. When you go out and do the stuff you're talking about, you're out in the woods, you're mapping for yourself, you're paying attention, you're using your brain along with your muscles,
Mm-hmm.
and it's completely different.
God, I miss Indian mud runs so much. I mean, the way he would design that course where, a fallen tree is an obstacle. You would traverse across the side of a rock face. And yeah, he'd call it an obstacle, but it's just nature. And like,
Hmm.
you have to actually stay engaging because this is some like seriously dangerous stuff that you're doing. You can't just like turn your brain off. It's not, just go run a loop around a motocross park, collect a medal. It was climbing up a hill, down the hill, across the rocks. It was some of the most technical terrain we saw in obstacle course racing. And there were plenty of places where you could get lost easily. We saw a lot of people getting lost on that last race. And like every little thing on that course, he would consider it an obstacle because it was a natural obstacle.
Yeah. And that's what nature is. And I mean, I think that's the biggest thing is I hear so many times people like, oh, the course wasn't marked well enough. Then pay attention.
Yeah.
It's like those are the ones that I like the most. Give me a couple little spots like, hey, here's, like I said in Sisu, there's a ribbon like every quarter of a mile, and that's it. And it's just, I mean, I'm talking like half an inch wide by like 4 inch long ribbon hanging from a branch out in the middle
Yeah.
of the woods. So it's very easy to miss them, So it's one of those things that if you're not paying attention, and you're not doing whatever, you're lost. And it amazes me so much when you see people like on Spartan race. Oh, they didn't have enough, it wasn't marked very well. Well, why don't you just pay attention? Because we do get into that mind numbing of just follow the person in front of me and just keep going and I'll get there.
Yeah. Keep your eye out for, the white tape, turn
Yep.
at the white tape. not, okay, well, you using a map because you actually need a map. And like, I'm coming up to this intersection, or, at one point during this race or before this race, they were like, okay, there are a lot of hills out at Blue Hills. That's why it's called the Blue Hills. So on one part, there's a section that you go up and over Buck Hill, and you actually do Buck Hill twice in two different ways. Said when you're coming down Buck Hill, you're going to go the switchback way. Because they close the steep descent, so you're going the switchback. So I, didn't pay attention to my watch during that part, because I'm like, I run Buck Hill every weekend. I know the switchback way. I love the switchback way. This is so much fun to descend. So I started going down what I know of as the switchbacks, and my watch is just going off like crazy. And I'm like, why is it telling me I'm off course? Like they said, take the switchbacks. And I pulled up the map on my phone on all trails so I could like follow along where
Mhm.
it was and like try to piece it to where I am. And I'm like, they mean a different switchback way. Because if I take this switchback way and come down, then I'm missing, or I'm coming too far away from the out that they want us to take. So we had to actually end up going back up to the top of Buck Hill and find a different way to come down for a different switchback way. And it was like all of one switchback. So like I wouldn't call that the switchback way when the other one is literally zigzagging down.
Yeah.
But it was like, oh, great, because I had it in my head like, I know exactly where I'm going. I don't need to think about it right now. I'm just going to go and enjoy the run and open up. I missed it, and I ended up adding on, 20 more minutes because I had to stop, look at my phone, make sure I was on the right trail or not, try to find the way to get over to the right trail, get all the way back up the hill, finally get onto that next trail, and then, trip over some more rocks.
Yeah. Well, the other one thing was nice, like even on Ironman, but they're like, yeah, we have everything that's marked for you, but we gave you a map for a reason.
Yeah.
Like, make sure you pay attention to where you're going, because there are a couple of turns. Luckily, there was only like 3 turns, and then it was just you went straight out for 28 miles and turned around and came back. But I mean, yeah, they're like, you need to pay attention. Even on the last one I did, they're like, yeah, the turns are marked, but you should know where you're going.
Yeah.
But I mean, a lot of these other races, they don't. I mean, I don't know how many times, I've done races where it's just you, especially, and I know we keep saying Spartan, but it's just the what we know, you just follow the person in front of you. If the group in front of me went the wrong way, I would have gone the wrong way multiple times.
That's how I ended up going the wrong way a couple times.
Yeah.
Yeah. That poor
And that's
woman.
what's nice about these other ones. You have to think,
Yeah.
did she find?
So once we turned around and started going the right way, we were, we had, so how this race is, there are 3 different sections. Like you have to cross the
Mhm.
street, and there are like 3 different areas. We start in the middle, go around, and then we have to go and cross over another street. So she was heading back towards the start, and I'm like, no, we need to be way on the other side. So we finally get there, we cross over, and we run the full loop, and we're coming back on the skyline, which is like towards where we would cross back to the original part. And she was coming the reverse. And we're like, oh boy, like now you're also running this backwards, like this poor woman. And she said like she had done like World's Toughest Mudder like 4 times. She was like big into obstacle course racing for a while. So I'm like, my heart really felt for her, but I'm like, now you're running it backwards. Um, she said that her map took her all the way to the start line, and she didn't realize that she was off until she had gotten to the start line. So at that point, she was like, I'm just going to go and try and do as much of the course as I can. I don't care what direction it has to be in.
Yeah.
And that is why so many people DNF this race.
I'm sure. I mean, yeah, because I mean, you get lost out there in the woods, and it's easy to get turned around. I mean,
Yeah.
you think you're going the right way, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, wait a minute. Well, maybe if I just go over this way, I'll end up in the right spot. And then you don't, and then all of a sudden you're 5 or 6 miles off course, and oops, it happens.
Yeah. I mean, I know we're a podcast, so anybody who's not watching this on YouTube won't see it. But like, can you see that at
No, the
all?
camera's doing something weird.
Why is the camera doing something weird?
Oh, there we go. Now I can see it. Yeah,
It's literally all over the place.
yeah.
It,
And it looks like you cross back over each other yourself, and
yeah,
wow, that is an interesting one. But it looks like it'd be a blast.
it was so much fun. It's so hard. Like, it's called Don't Run Boston because obviously the Boston Marathon was today.
Hmm.
Shocker, we're recording this on Marathon Monday. And it's like not purposely a jab, but like it's supposed to be kind of like a jab of like all of the road runners, like, oh, you're just pounding pavement to get a marathon medal. Like, ha, you're stopping after 26.2 miles. That's cute. Like, here we are. There was a 50K and a 50-mile option for this. So like it's a play on that. But like
Hmm.
they get people that don't run Boston and then go and run the Boston Marathon the next day.
Yeah,
It is absolutely insane.
that is
But
insane.
again, it's like super humbling. Probably one of the hardest, I mean, obviously, the hardest race I've ran in terms of like trail racing.
Hmm.
And I would compare it to Killington, like what the Killington Beast would do. Obviously the Killington Beast is much better um course markings. There is
Yeah,
some off trail stuff, whatever. Like this wasn't just doing stupid things to do stupid things. Like again, sorry, Spartan, but like Spartan will run you straight across the side of a ski mountain and your ankles are like on an, you know, a- all cockeyed the entire time. This is like straight up on real trails the entire time. You're just like weaving and zigzagging all
yeah.
spastically. So it is so much fun, such an incredible challenge, but like definitely not for the faint of heart. You have to really know those trails if you have any um hope to actually finish it because you're going to get turned around and the miles are going to pile on really quickly to the point that it's like I don't know that I can keep going. And when
Yeah.
it finally gets runnable again towards the end, you are so destroyed. You're like, I just want to be done now. Why am I just running in circles? Because it literally is just like clover leafing around,
Yeah.
and you're like, I've already been here. Oh my gosh, what's going on?
Brittany, why
Um,
are we back? Yeah.
yeah, so much fun. Yesterday finished off was like, I don't know if I never ever need to run this again. And I'm like, I kind of really want to run it again. It
Yeah.
sucks. It's miserable. It's so much fun.
Yeah, and I mean that's how we're all built a little different. Because we do something like that. Like for me, it's like, I finished the Ironman and literally like I'm wrecked. I mean, the
Yeah.
picture my wife took of me at the end of it, I look like I've just, I don't know what I look. I look like I survived something horrible. And I'm like, literally as we're walking back to the car, I'm talking about what I need to do better for next year and how I need to sign up now. And she's like, really? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, and how many times have you do that? You do one of those races, you're like, that sucked. So for next time, we need
Yep.
to do this, this, and this to make it suck a little less.
Exactly. But then also like now you know what to expect for this race, so you need to go find a different race that's going to be a little bit harder
Yeah.
because you're going to get to this race next year and you're going to be so over prepared that you're like, I could have kept going. I need something harder
Mm,
now.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm doing a small, like a sprint triathlon next month, just for fun. Um, but I'm thinking, I haven't decided yet. I'm thinking about the Waco Ironman.
Okay.
But that's in like October. But I need to get through. I've got the Sisu race in June, and then I've got the uh, Ragnar in July. But other than that, I've got a couple of Spartans that I'm doing with more heart than scars. But those are the two big races I've got coming up. And then I haven't decided. I think I might do Waco just to give myself that something to push for towards the end of the year and get me ready to better what I did this year. Here.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think Waco's a little bit more hills, not much, but a little bit more. But the swim is a river. It's a downriver swim. So that should be easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So
you have time now.
mhm.
Start strength training.
Yeah.
Don't focus so much on your mileage. Focus on the quality of miles that you're getting and not just how far you're getting. I
Yeah.
would much rather take 5 technical miles where I can learn to control my heart rate than 10 easy miles where it's just flat, boring, fast mileage.
Well, see, that's the fun part of here too, is because there's no real hills. I found Huntsville State Park. I've been there the last, like this weekend and like 2 weekends ago. I went to Huntsville. There's a nice little 8 mile loop. But even in that 8 mile loop, I mean, they call it hills here, but it's like a total, I think, of like 300 feet of elevation in 8 miles.
That's
Yeah.
cute.
Like I said, that's what I said. They were like, oh, this is hilly. And I'm like, where?
This ultra broadcast about 5,000 feet of elevation over 31 miles, and I got 6,000. So,
Yeah. So that's the hard part here. It's like, I want to train hills, but I'm like,
yeah, and Boston doesn't even
where's,
have hills, but we
yeah.
we have enough.
Yeah. The Texas, they have their idea of hills are different.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, little ant hills.
yeah, it's quite interesting. Just like, wow.
Yeah,
But,
I'm good in Boston.
yeah. I mean, I like everything else here. That's the one hard part, though, is getting the hill training. So I've got to try and find a place where there's something like even just a hill that I can just go up and down over and over again to get some hill training in. But I'll
Yeah.
have to find that around here somewhere. So,
I attempted I've gotten so busy with work that I was like, I can't get out to my hill on my hill training days. So I was running on a treadmill and I said, no, I can't do this. So I now drive a good amount to find to go out to the Harvard Arboretum just to run those hills in the middle of my workday because there's no way that I can even do treadmill hills because they're too miserable. There nothing beats the um the benefits of actually running on a real hill.
yeah,
I don't care if you can jack your treadmill up to 40 degrees. If you're not running real hill, like you're not gonna really understand the mindset you need to get up that hill
yeah.
and just
No, it's a
descend
completely
it.
different.
You also got to learn how to run
No.
downhill.
Oh yeah.
So
That'll make your quads burn.
yeah, the two
The
times I
down the hills.
cramped were down
Yeah.
hills
I know.
with poor
Yeah.
technique.
I know my fastest marathon was I did a marathon that was 2,000 feet of downhill.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's a reason why I was fast. I was flying downhill.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, we're getting close to that hour mark. So is there
Yes.
anything you want to tell the listeners?
Um, no, I'm really just like head down, keep grinding. I think next time we come on, we should probably have another nutrition talk because I don't know if you've seen, but I've started on a CGM. So I am figuring out all of my race nutrition now. And like I'm seeing phenomenal results just from the 2 weeks that I've been on my CGM. My pacing is better, my nutrition in general is better, and I'm really seeing like I'm shedding body fat exactly where I want to. Like my mental health is better, my energy levels are better. All from just like very small modifications to my diet. So, loving that and I can't wait to talk more about like what I'm doing and the benefits that we're seeing from it.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about that. I've noticed that on your Facebook, You can definitely see it in the pictures. You can, see it in everything you're talking about. I definitely, the next one, we definitely need to talk about that nutrition.
Yes.
So, because that's the next step. There's the grinding, there's the weights, there's everything else. But like we've all said, you can't out train a bad diet.
Yeah. And like, I didn't have a bad diet. And to see what I had to, everything that I've changed to get these results, like, oh, like you need pristine nutrition. And like, it's
Yeah,
incredible to see. So we can definitely talk about that.
nice. So, yep, definitely next episode we'll definitely talk nutrition.
Okay, perfect.
All right. So we'll talk soon.
Yes, definitely have a good night.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the BeastNet podcast. If you haven't done it yet, find us on Facebook, like and share the podcast. Give us a review on iTunes or Spotify. All these things will help to expand the show in the future. Don't forget to subscribe and let us know what you think and what you'd like to hear.